Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 99 of Franco's World. Today's guest, I've actually been a fan of his for like 2 years or so I'm really pumped to have him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Wolf. Jamie, what's up, guy?
Hey, how's it going, man? How are you?
This is great. We've been talking for like 25 minutes before this, and we have to act like it's our first time ever talking ever again. That's my favorite part.
I didn't know what to. I was like, do I just pretend like I just spoke to you? Like I didn't talk.
Oh, man. All right, Jamie, where can the people follow you at?
At Jamie Wolf Comedy on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok.
Yeah, and on TikTok, folks, and he is popping off on TikTok. I told him before this, I said, if you posted more on the other ones, you would also blow up on the other ones. So hopefully he starts posting more, man. I've been a fan of his stuff, like I said, since 2019. He's got some really good stuff out there, so go check him out. So Jamie and I were talking before this, and he was curious of my comedic journey. So I'll start off, and you can make comments as you please, Jamie, about my comedic journey. I've always been a comedy fan. I've always appreciated the art. And my dad was a pastor, so I got to see my dad do an hour of new material like every week for my whole childhood. And he was a really energetic guy. He wasn't like a screaming, yelling guy, but he was very animated on stage. And my sister was a good actress and stuff like that. And so I was like, how do I get attention? Oh, I get it by being funny, and I remember, being a kid watching, Patrice O'Neal and Cat Williams and Chappelle and all these guys and just being in awe, in a state of shock and awe as I watched them, how they captivate an audience and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to be able to do that. So
Dude, wait. So was your dad a funny pastor?
yeah, because he wasn't like a hellfire and brimstone type of guy. He'd be in the pulpit and he'd be like, Sister Jean knows what I'm talking about. And Sister Jean, like the whole crowd is in stitches.
Sister, she knows. That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, like that's just like it's so easy to kill as a pastor because like all you have to do is make jabs at other denominations. People kill it and be like, hide the communion. The Catholics are here, and it's like people are dying. Like it's so easy, bro. So
Wow.
my dad's a killer.
Wow. So it's kind of, it runs in the family a little bit.
Oh yeah, because you know me, I'm a big time killer. I get up there, I knock them dead.
I don't
And
know. I assume.
yeah, no. And then I didn't start writing. I mean, I would watch like Kevin Hart specials when I was in high school, middle school, and stuff like that. And I would write down jokes I liked, word for word, and take out the dirty stuff,
Yeah.
and then give them to my parents as if I wrote them. And they'd be like, I don't get it. And I'm like, Mom, it's Kevin Hart. He's like a murderer.
You don't get it. That's so funny, dude. For some reason, that is a common thread between a lot of comics that I talked to. Like, if they were into comedy when they were younger,
Hmm.
I did that too. I would like watch, like let's say Jim Gaffigan or Louis C.K. or
Right.
even L or Kevin Hart, and I would do the bits for my parents. Like I would recite the
Yeah.
bits.
It'd be like, this is my material.
Yeah, as if it was mine. And then also later on, when I started like getting into comedy, like to actually do it, I would just write down verbatim like bits of comedians I liked, which is it's so odd, but like a lot of people I talk to, that's like a common thread.
Wow. I thought I was like, I thought I
I
was like a bad guy.
I know. No, I thought it was weird too, but then the more comics I talk to, the more that's like seems to be like a thing. Not for all of them, but like a lot of comics do that for some reason.
Yeah. When I
I
was
don't
in
know.
high school, one special that really got me was Kyle Kinane's Whiskey Icarus. And
Yes.
he has this joke on here about like eating pancakes loosely out of a bag.
Yeah, dude.
And then
Dude,
he has well, there's one part in it where he's like, I'll take to the skies today. And he's on the tarmac and he's like, is this plane going southbound? Like it kills me, bro. Kills me.
it's so weird how like comedians are different than like other people will remember they're like, it's like fun. Like he was funny. He's talking about like pancakes or something. Like they don't really
Yeah.
remember the comics. They'll remember, you remember exactly what he said. It's
Yes.
so, it's like there's a tape recorder going in our mind whenever comedy's happening. It's like, oh, that's funny. I need to remember that. Like I could quote like the entire John Mulaney specials, like all of Chappelle's first two specials,
Oh
just
yeah.
because like some reason like it's imprinted into my brain.
Yes.
Because when I'm like tuned in. It's so interesting, dude.
Yes, dude. The me and my dad, I'll never forget. This was on Comedy Central, so they kind of made it somewhat clean. Dave Chappelle's "Killing Them Softly" when he starts talking about the baby on the street corner. That one even killed my dad. That's how I know it's a good one. If my dad, it gets him. My dad likes Gabriel Iglesias.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, but he's notoriously good, right?
He sells out arenas, so he must be, he must be all right.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty clean, so I think that's why he likes him. And I work mostly clean. I live in fear of my parents.
I was gonna say, is that because of your dad?
Yeah, 1,000%. Actually, I'm more so afraid of my mom than I am my dad.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think it's just I think they would get over it eventually, and not to say I'd be up there F this, F that every 2 seconds, but to even say hell or damn in a joke, I'd be worried. I think they'd get over that.
But you know what? I think I actually think that's a good thing long term. The fact that you don't want to go dirty quickly, because
Right.
I do dirty material and I'm shoot, how do I ever get on television? I'm just I don't understand. No one's gonna put a date rape joke on television.
Right. They always say
that's probably weird for someone without context, but I have a date rape joke, and it's good. It's not about doing it. It's about the word.
And we'll get to this eventually. He has these jokes where he has these controversial blank statements, and then he flips it. It's so good. We'll get to it eventually. But I think most people, when they start out comedy, it's very dirty, very vulgar stuff. And me, I'm kind of a contrarian at heart, and I think most comics are. So when everybody zigs, I zag, and I hear, oh, everybody's doing this. Okay, I want to do that. And that's also so I started performing comedy when I got into college and do my college open mics. And I ended up doing really well. I was one of it's rude to say you're the best guy, but I was one of the better guys on the scene. And I was able to host mics, and then they'd have opener, and I'd be an opener for they'd bring in some, road guy, and I'd open for them. And then I worked one summer in Pittsburgh, did a few mics in Pittsburgh, worked in Allentown, wasn't really able to hit Philly mics as often as I wanted to, but that's when I started the podcast.
Right.
And so my podcast weekly, 30, 45 minutes, just me riffing material, this or that. Those are my reps. These are my practice, And then year 2, which I'm on now, I wanted to interview comics and just gain familiarity with them, play ball with them. And that's really what my plan is.
And you interviewed pretty much every single person I know in New York.
We actually talked about this before the show, and I went through and named most of the people. I don't know about all of them. And he's these are all my close friends.
Yes. Yeah. Every single one of them was right. Dan Carney's probably the closest of all of them, but I know literally every, I met Joey Rinaldi in college. I know all of those people. It's so funny to think that that I think of them as just my friends, and it's funny to think of them as people people reach out to, because I guess we're it makes sense. We're in New York, which is the mecca of comedy, but it's just funny that Tim McHugh is someone reaches out. Dumbass who is at stand-up New York all the time. He's good at comedy. Funny. It's
some random kid from West Virginia wants to spend an hour with Tim McHugh online.
Yeah, exactly. Sexual. It's just to talk.
Yeah, just to talk to him. Dan Carney and I had a really good episode, and it's so cool to see Dan blow up because I get to see some of those dividends. So shout out to Dan, because people come and check out our episode all the time.
Oh, hell yeah. That's so fun. That's so funny. Yeah, Dan is a good friend. He's a guy who I met in New York 3 years ago, and as soon as I met him, I was oh, he's gonna do very well, just because he's people love him. He's just so the guy. You just want to be around him. Yeah, you know what I mean? He's just super easy to conversate with, and just very pleasant guy. Very, very, very good at riffing. Off stage, but one of the funniest people. He's dog shit on stage, but off stage, he's just, I love that guy. One of my great friends in comedy.
it's very funny that you say he's a very likable guy, because the first comic I had on here, fellow West Virginia Mountaineer Clyde Mack, said Jamie Wolf can go into any room and he's just a likable guy.
That's really funny. Well, Clyde's never seen me perform in a black room, and
I thought he said you were in a black room. I thought he said that.
Okay, I did his show one time, and here's the thing: like, I'll do racial material in a black room because that does well,
right?
And then all my other material, like the date rape joke that we'll talk about later, that does not.
Oh, really?
Like the racial stuff goes over pretty well, but the like anything else, they're just like, oh, it's like kind of turned.
Oh,
yeah.
They're like, oh, you know, can't go to a black therapist. That kills, you know.
That kills. Yes, 100%. That does very well.
Yeah, well, that, and I guarantee you don't do this, but Clyde was telling me, he was like, some people go in there and try to quote unquote turn their black on. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I even have a bit about it where, like, the first time a white guy meets a black guy, they always like act like they're auditioning to become black. like a guy like me, but he meets a black guy, he's like, yo, salutation. Talk like that.
Salutations.
It's just so weird that, like, you feel the need to change who you are. And it's like so obvious too. Like, I'm wearing Canyon National Park shirt. You're gonna expect me to talk like how I talk. You're gonna expect me to, yo, man, so I was chilling the other, like.
There's not many black people in West Virginia, and the very few that are in my hometown I was friends with, and sometimes, like, I've slipped up and, like, I'll talk about something. Instead of saying like their friend, I'll be like, and your homie did this, and I'll be like, wait, that's just Kyle. Like, yeah, and Kyle did this, you know.
Yeah. It's just like always better to present yourself as who you are than to, like, and because people can feel it, you know, like that's always like the one thing is a lot of it does stem from just like not understanding. But, like, you know, when you go in a black room, there's a lot of comics that, like, grew up wealthy and they didn't know black people growing up.
Yeah.
So, like, when you go into that room, you think, oh, I have to change myself. Whereas really, black people are the same as anyone. They just want you to be who you are.
Yeah.
And then
I think
doesn't mean you're well. It just means, like, don't change up your personality.
One thing in particular, and here is I think I have a good judge of character. At least my therapist thinks so. The thing about going into black rooms, they want something that's real. You know what I mean? So if you go and obviously I've only been in New York a couple times, but say you go to a gentrified area in Brooklyn, that area is like fake, so you can be fake. You go to a black room, you have to be real.
Dude, that's like the best way to describe it. I think it's because black people have a lot of practice in the United States of, like, sussing out. You know, because if you're black,
they've been lied to. They've been lied to forever.
Yeah. You have to be on guard. You have to, like, be a good judge of, like, authentic character. And it's also really obvious when people aren't doing that.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a good point because I've seen people in alt rooms in New York, like, you know, like, well, I don't need to name a place, just like in alt rooms in New York, that, like, they're not being, like, honest. They're, like, being like, I'm going to do an impression of the wind, you know? And, like, that's one kind of comedy. It's definitely not going to work in a black room, but it is one kind of comedy.
Yeah.
And
comedy comes in
bad. Yeah. That there. It's got to be a little more real, like you're saying.
Exactly. And, you know, that's great. You know, if you juggle and you get on a unicycle, you can do that, you know? Don't get mad at me if I don't like it. You know? That's really all I have to say about that. But I became a fan of yours in 2019 after I saw your Philly's Funniest set. I don't know how I saw it. I think I maybe saw it on your Instagram. And you said, like, it only had a couple hundred views. I was one of those views. I was probably multiple views because it absolutely killed me. And if you want to talk about the whole Philly's Funniest process, you can. Or if you just want to talk about some of the jokes that stuck out in particular, that's fine with me.
Okay, so here's the story of Philly's Funniest. It's kind of crazy. It's a local competition in Philly. This is for the viewer. I know you know, but it's
speaking of which, Helium Comedy Club saw Steve Byrne there. It was great.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I mean, that's great clubs in the nation. It's literally one of in the nation. And I never really did comedy in Philly. I was started in Santa Barbara, did it for the summer after freshman year of college in New York. I was like sleeping on a friend's floor, went back to Santa Barbara, decided I needed to transfer. So I transferred to NYU, which, by the way, that NYU is the shittiest place imaginable. But I transferred to NYU. I transferred to NYU, and then just to do comedy. And so I was doing school while doing comedy every day. And I would like go down to Philly and do some mics, but I wasn't really part of the Philly scene. I'm from Philly, wasn't really part of the scene. So fast forward to 2019, I've been in New York for 2.5 years. And my brother's like, you can get a tape if you do Philly's Funniest. And I was like, yeah, I just need a 5-minute tape. So I entered, paid the fee. I still lived technically permanent address at my mom's. So I entered my mom's address in Philly, paid the fee, got into the first round just to get a tape. I just wanted a 5-minute tape. Happened to advance to the second round. I got another tape, advanced to the third round, got another tape. And at this point, internally, I'm like, I really don't want to win because I don't do comedy in Philly.
Right.
So at that, probably should have just told the manager of Helium, just like, hey, thanks for the first 3 rounds, but I want to take myself out of contention. But I entered the last round, and I happened to be fourth, which is easily the best spot on that lineup.
Yeah.
They're kind of tight at the beginning. They're not warmed up yet. So I had easily the best spot. And I decided to even do like a couple jokes that I didn't think would do that well, because I was like, I really just don't want to win. I wanted to be in the final and get a good tape and not win. And then those happened to do well. It was 3 jokes I'd never told before. I told that night. Yeah. I was like, just won't do well and I lose. I happened to win, and and I got a great tape out of it. And I don't know, it kind of, in retrospect, I'm like, I shouldn't have entered or just done the first round and bowed out, because I got a tape. Then I would get a tape, and then like, it wouldn't be a weird resentment from Philly people. That's totally warranted, by the way, of like, you entered a competition when you weren't a Philly comedian.
Right. Right. It's so funny that you're like, well, I kind of want to throw this competition. I'll just use new material. And it like worked, I presume. I mean, you won the contest.
Well, that's what, in retrospect, I shouldn't have done, is because like, if a new joke works, it works better than old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my experience, like the first time a joke hits, it hits hardest. And then you try and recreate that moment when you do it again. So that was kind of where I went wrong, which is like, I did new stuff that was like, I thought might be good, and then it all did work. So yeah. I kind of shot myself in the foot. I should have just done jokes I knew bombed, like jokes I'd done before that bombed, to make sure.
Right. Again, you tell these jokes, and now we're getting to the part that we've been teasing for half the episode.
Like 40
minutes. I don't know how long we've been recording, actually. Like, so here's the deal. We tried to record on Zencastr for like 15 minutes, and it's not working. And now we're recording on Zoom. Audio quality probably isn't going to be as good. And by the way, you guys can't tell, but Jamie's actually laughing at what I'm saying. I know it sounds quiet, but he's actually laughing at what I say. Okay, I'm a funny guy. And so he tells these jokes that are almost like sticker shock stuff. So there's a joke that's date rape. There's a joke about internment camps or something like that. You have the German Jewish joke. That's good. And then you have the other one that I like about the black therapist and stuff like that. So how do you craft those jokes? Like, how do you see a topic that you're like, oh, that'll get somebody, but then you twist it in a way to make people forget all about the sticker shock? Yeah,
exactly. That's like I think it's a product of like the rooms I did to build those jokes. Cause the room I'm doing in New York, I didn't get a lot of like sets. Like it was all mics. So what you have to do at mics to make people pay attention is, because comedians are like sick people,
right?
That like, you have to start with something that's like unpleasant to get them to pay attention, and then you can just do a joke. Mm-hmm. But like I learned, and like that's kind of how I function comedically now, which is I learn you start at like, what's the most shocking thing to say at the beginning to get everyone to pay attention. And I learned this at mics, and then you can kind of do the joke. But I always try and start in a that will have people be like, huh, because then at a mic, that's the only way they'll even listen.
Yeah. You're Trojan horsing the audience.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And then I can do the bit I want to do. But I like starting in a place that makes people uncomfortable. And I think it's a product of the fact that that only is the only thing that worked in the rooms I was doing.
Wow. And comics were very yeah, somewhat bitter people. So like laughs are currency, and obviously a lot of people don't want to give them up, man.
Dude, yeah. I mean, that's why mics are tough because
Mike's
people,
Mike's are tough.
unless they know, like, oh, this is someone I should laugh at. Like say someone with a TV credit comes into mics, like, people do that all the time in New York. But like someone who's on Fallon will come in and you can tell like people kind of turn it on when their set comes up. Like you're like,
Ah,
good as you gave it, but you're trying to like,
is
you're
that
putting
some? Is that okay? So you're saying that the audience is being fake when somebody with a credit walks in? Is that just because like, oh, this guy laughed at my stuff, I want to be friends with that guy and get him on? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't even know what it is. I think I think it's partly that, but I think mostly it's just like they don't want the person with the credit to look out in the audience and see them just like,
Stonewalling them.
yes, exactly. Because then that person on stage might, I think the thought process is just like kind of dislike, just like kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the mic scene, obviously, it's tough. New York's the mecca of comedy. What are you seeing in New York comedy right now? What do you forecast the future of New York comedy to be? Say someone like me who is trying desperately to get a job and move up there, 3 roommates, live in Astoria, and have a ball. What do you see?
First of all, that's the best plan. I mean, that's really the only plan I think if you want to like truly make it. So that's great. I do think that the scene right now, it's in a weird state. Like during the pandemic, I'd say before this April,
Mm-hmm.
like it was a specific scene. It was basically just outdoor or rooftop shows,
Mm-hmm.
like parks, on someone's roof, outside, on a sidewalk, like literally. So I did a mic in Times Square recently, like just like literally anywhere outside that's safe COVID wise.
Yeah.
That's where performing. And now, starting in April, the clubs came back indoors.
Yeah.
At 33% capacity. So it's like a weird interim phase where you still have the outdoor stuff. And I don't think that's gonna go away anytime soon. But then indoor stuff's coming back. So like it's nowhere near the volume it was pre-COVID. It's probably like 1/5 of that volume.
Mm-hmm.
But like kind of you can see the wheels turning. You can see like the engine starting again.
Yeah.
And I think by like July, it'll just be fully the same as before. The good thing is I think some people quit permanently. And first of all, it's a good thing anytime a comic quits. But I would quit if I could make myself do it. But it's like there's going to be the same, if not more spots in July as pre-COVID, and there's way less comedians.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you mean there. I got my COVID vaccine the other day and I felt like garbage. I felt sick. I knew I had to get ready for this interview. And I'm like, what if I just stopped? What if I just did that? And then I was like, can't do that. All right. So hopefully I get up there soon and get to those spots. And I've luckily enough I've made some good connections, some good friends with all you guys, apparently your entire friendship group, and get up there and do the dang thing. I want to go back to the social media stuff. Okay, so why don't you think you post more on TikTok or stuff like that? Like maybe you just stare into the camera and say a joke. I know that's a popular thing that people can do, or maybe if you have some other material and stuff like that. Are you planning to do that or what?
No, I don't like social media. I think social media is a cancer to our culture,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm on it because I'm a comedian.
Right.
But I'm not going to use it more than I feel like I have to. Like I'm never going to force myself to use it. Like my manager's like, dude, post. You got to post on social media.
Right.
You got to do it. That's the only way to like get it. And I'm like, no, I'm just no. I'm not going to do that. I think it's bad in every way. I do think though it's good for what I think it's good for personally for me is like when I have a clip, post it on TikTok because that's how it gets views.
Right.
Like it wouldn't use if I didn't have social media, if I just like say posted it on like my website or something. So I think it's good to like, push my content out there. but to use it like actively to try and gain a following, to me is like, yeah, it's. I feel like it's not the right use of my time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also not to say no one should do it. It just really it's distasteful to me. And if people like I have friends who are big on social media and like big on TikTok, and like that's awesome. But
Yeah.
I don't. But it's not good.
It's so funny that you have a few tapes and you make clips of it. You put it on TikTok, and I randomly saw you on my timeline, like the For You page. Not even like I hadn't even followed you yet. You showed up on my timeline. I was like, heck yes, Jamie Wolf's on here. Like, follow, all this stuff. And then you posted consistently for like 2 months, and you blew up. You have X amount of followers, and now you're gone.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think a lot of people like just approach it differently than me. Like, because I think some people I know would be like really excited about that, but I was like, I knew it wouldn't change anything, and it didn't. It didn't change literally. And it's so funny because someone posted. This is actually what I found so funny. Me and my friend joke about this all the time. Someone commented on one of my clips. They said, "Dude, you're like living my dream." And I thought it was so funny because at the time, they don't understand that I'm just like some guy. Like I'm not even a professional. I'm doing pretty well in comedy, but that's I'm not making money. He's
Right,
like, dude, you're my dream. As I myself had no home, like I didn't have a home to live. And I was
like, oh, okay.
Like they were. He's like, you're living my dream. I'm like, come live it, please, for me. You're homeless and jobless.
Yeah, what a dream. Yeah, what a dream, dude. That's crazy. I had a couple clips go viral on there. I had one get over 1 million views, a couple 500,000, this and that, and stuff like that. And for me, what kind of turned me off to it was, one, it's obviously it's not real. Two, the amount of, I guess it's entitlement that 15, 16-year-old kids have is unbelievable. These kids can't even drive, and they're like trying to decide my fate on the internet. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I know, dude. What's an example of one of the comments?
Oh, just like my mom should have aborted me, this and that. Like, just people see my jokes and they're just like, oh, this bothers me. And it's like, dude, look how many likes it has. Like, obviously it's not a bad joke. Like, people like it. Like, there was one time I told a joke about Gen Z girls, because you and I were technically in Gen Z. You know what I mean? And like, looking back on it, it's a stupid joke. But like I said, like, Gen Z girls, our age, not younger, our age, won't answer a phone call from a number they don't recognize, but will sell naked photos of themselves to strangers. And I never said that that was bad or that they shouldn't do that.
Right.
But the 16-year-old kids that were like pro activists at 16, you'd have thought I shot Kennedy.
Dude, it's so funny. Like, it's so true. They just
and they all comment. Go ahead.
Well, because don't really understand what comedy is a lot of the time. And look, I'm not one of those guys who's like, why are you upset that I made a rape joke? Like, right. I get it. Like, I understand why. But it's also like that kind of bit is hilarious to me because it's not like you're the one. You're not saying it's bad. You're just making an observation.
It's a comparison.
So they're getting exactly. If they're getting offended by it, that's because like they have something they need to work through. But you just saying that, it's true. Like it's not like making it that way.
It's like, oh, I got a call from Bakersfield. I'm not picking that up, but let me bend over in front of the camera. But I'm not picking up this call from Bakersfield. Like,
yeah.
You can do that. You can do that. I'm just saying it's ironic.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
God. But then they all ganged up. They thought like this would get me because I had comedian in my bio, and it's very easy to put comedian in your bio. It's very hard to actually do comedy. And I had comedian in the bio, and then they kept saying like, take that out, take that out, take that out. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, you can keep commenting that I'm not taking it out.
Yeah, man, this is just, I mean, stuff like that too is that's kind of when I like it. I love when people would shit on me because I just reckon I found it funny that like they thought I would care. Yeah. Like it's just funny to think that like they thought I would value the opinion of some random person I'd never met who upon one video that's not even a minute long would decide I should kill myself. I just think it's like, silly that like they think I put any stake or value.
Yeah.
That.
Dude,
Like,
you
I
have
care
like an anime K-pop AV. Like, I don't care what you have to say.
I know. You're not even an adult. You don't even know how the world functions.
No. Bad.
You like probably have never had a job.
No, that's the thing, dude. You know what they set in their suburban neighborhoods and they live in a McMansion, and that's all well and good, and they get to be internet activists, and that's great. I'm happy you get to do that, but you don't understand how the world works, you know?
I'm fine with it. It's also like people who like I'm not like one of those people who's like cancel culture is like ruining the world. I just think like I don't care. It's fine. You can get mad all you want, and I can tell jokes all I want, and that's kind of why, like, not to get like patriotic, but like that's why I love America. It's like that's the rules. Like you're free. You're free to try and get me fired if you want.
Yeah.
From my job if you get offended, but like I'm also free to say it.
Yeah, and we could go into a whole thing about this, but you know, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of repercussions. You know, if you say things, you might get called on it, and that's perfectly fine. And Tim Dillon actually had a good point about this because he's all into that stuff. Some writer got fired recently for insensitive tweets.
Yeah.
I don't remember her name, but she got fired. And Tim, I think, summed it up best because she was going after people for insensitive tweets getting hired. And then she ended up actually getting fired for the same thing. And he said, like, you know, if you say those things, that's fine. But whenever you sign up to work for corporate comedy, essentially, instead of doing it for yourself, you can't get mad if this is like, that's the game. Like, it's the game.
God, that's such a good point. And also to her credit, she didn't say she was against, like, she didn't say she was mad. She was like, for the record, I'm still for consequence culture, which is what she calls it.
Wow.
But like, hey, that's fine. Like, that's more power to you. If you're going to get fired and then still be for the thing that got you fired, like, great.
You know what?
It sounds like she actually has principles.
I kind of respect the double down.
I know.
As much as I hate like the canceling, got to respect the double down.
You got to respect the double down, but also you're insane. Like,
yeah, no, it's
like I respect that you believe that, but I personally think that is wild to be like, I'm for something that actively made me lose my job, and I am still for, like, it just doesn't compute to me.
I may never understand these people that are somehow verified, and I have my ear to the ground in the comedy scene, and I haven't heard of them. You know, I will never, you know, I've never said it. But one last thing I can talk about here, and I don't know how long we've been recording, but what are your comedic inspirations? Like,
I have top five. My top five, and these are my favorite, because I think actually for me the best of all time is a different top five than my favorite of all time. But my favorite, number one, Maria Bamford. Number two, Richard Pryor. Number three, Louis C.K. Number four, Dave Chappelle. And then number five, Chris Rock. And then my sixth man is less famous than all of them, but would have to be Nate Bargatze.
I love that you put Nate in there. And I could talk about, I would love to talk about Nate after I tell you my top five. So my top five is obviously Chappelle and Seinfeld, because I work mostly clean. And then here's a name, because he technically was a comedian during his time, maybe not set up punchline, but the entertainment stylings of Dean Martin.
Dean Martin. Wow.
Love Dean Martin. That's like 50s, 60s comedy, you know. I'm trying to think of a couple other people, because 4 and 5 are always like changing for me. One day I like this. Obviously I like Burr. Everybody likes Burr, so we'll throw him in there. And then I'll go through phases with like a fifth person. Like I'll watch like a couple of this guy and be like, oh, I'm really into this guy or that guy. I'm trying to think. Let's go Maniscalco at 5.
Yes. Yeah. Sebastian, dude.
Let's go Maniscalco at 5. But I love Nate. The thing about Nate, and this kind of goes back to what you're talking about, the New York mics, how you have to have this sticker shock opening. Yeah. Nate does the opposite of that. And it works.
Yeah.
it's very confusing to me because he has this joke. I think it's in Tennessee Kid, the special, and he's like, milk with ice in it, and he's like, nobody orders milk with ice in it. And he's like, he goes to Starbucks and he's like, I don't want cream, just do it for me. If it's wrong, I won't even get mad about it. I'll just dump it out and go to a different Starbucks. Like, he's just so casual, and I love that it works.
Well, I think anyone who's like gonna trying to be like really good at comedy is like kind of a comedy nerd. So I emailed him and like a bunch of other comedians when I was just in 2017.
This is so ironic. Okay, I did the same thing. We'll get to that in a minute. Oh my God.
Oh, incredible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, there's these common threads. Like, if you really into it, like, it's just interesting. Like, I was like, I need to get their thoughts because I need how they did it. So I but I emailed Nate, and he wrote back like a really long email. A lot of people didn't write back. Some wrote like short, like 2-sentence emails.
Keep getting up. That's it.
And keep getting up. That's it. And Nate was like, gave really good advice. And one of the things he said was, you have to go to shows as quickly as you can, because mics, you get trapped, like in mics. He was like, as soon as you can, start hanging at shows, start trying to get on shows, because that's where you make good jokes look really, really good. Like, that's where you actually learn how to do it.
Wow.
And that's always stuck with me and then the other piece of advice that stuck with me that he said was, he practices his comedy by weaving it into conversations. And you can tell that Mark Norman does not do that.
Yeah.
Because if you were to do that, you'd be like, are you doing a bit right now, Mark?
Yeah.
But with Nate, but like with Nate, you can really tell, because it's so smooth. It's so conversational. He's not trying to grab your attention. He's just talking, and it's funny.
Absolutely. I was in college, and I was probably like 8 months into my comedy journey. I started when I was 20 years old, because I heard Seinfeld started when he was 21, and I was like, oh, I have to start before Seinfeld. I have to, it's imperative. And messaged a ton of comics on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, none of them got back to me, and I would lie and say it was for a school project as a entry. The only guy who got back to me, I had one guy get back to me, Jared Freed. Jared Freed got back to me, and we talked on the phone for like an hour. And so I still have it recorded. I don't think he knows I recorded it, but I definitely recorded it. And I haven't listened to it in years, but like, there's some stuff he told me in that I still hang on to. Like, remember how I was telling you pre-show about how I want everybody to eat? I don't worry about outside success. He said that's head trash. And that term head trash, I'd never forget that term. And
what does that mean?
Head trash. He's just like those outside thoughts. It's like, oh, so-and-so's getting booked on here and I'm not. They got passed at the cellar. I didn't. And he's like, it's just not your time. If it'll happen eventually, if it's supposed to happen, it's head trash. Don't worry about what everybody else is getting, focus on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And also, but my philosophy is almost like, do focus on what other people are getting in terms of like, be positive about it.
Yeah.
Because every time my friend, like, do you know, okay, you should have him on. Jason Choi, great comedian, great comedian.
I'll write that down.
He just started getting like paid regular spots at New York Comedy Club. I hope I'm not like blowing up his spot, but started getting like paid regular spots there. And like when he said that, it wasn't like discouraging to me. I was like, holy shit, like my friend whose comedy I think is good, and like I believe is starting to get paid spots. So like it could happen for me too. Because I believe this. I obviously believe like my comedy is good. Like, what else would I do? But like, it's just so cool that it's so encouraging to see your friends get things, because it doesn't diminish you. It honestly, in a way, it builds you up, and it makes it seem more possible.
Look at the. Obviously, they've had some downfalls with off the field decisions, but look at what the LA comedy scene did there for a few years.
Off the field decisions.
Off the field issues,
locker room stuff.
It was locker room stuff, but those players only meetings did not stay in the clubhouse. They did not stay in the clubhouse. but those LA guys, and now they all have like the biggest podcasts around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like where your head's at, Jamie. I like where your head's at.
Are your listeners super into comedy advice, or is it just they're interested in comedians?
They're just interested in comedians. It's niche stuff. Well, they just like whenever I get on here and have a good time with my fellow jokesters and stuff like that. I don't know why you don't have a podcast, man. You're so easy to talk to on here.
So thanks, man. I think my piece of advice, like my closing statement, would be: if you're thinking about doing comedy, don't do it.
Honestly, not bad advice.
I'll tell you why once we're done recording, but that's always my advice: is don't do it, or if you're doing it, quit. I'll tell 100 times out of 100. I'll say that.
Jamie, I think I know why you're saying this. And I'm going to guess it on the show. And like, I don't care what the listeners have to say. I'm guessing it on the show.
Yeah.
If you're worried it's going to make you look bad, then that's fine. But yeah, I think you're saying these things because if somebody's not fully in and they need that push out, you just gave them that push out and they weren't really committed to it anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I learned that from Seinfeld said this. He's like, that's my advice to any up and coming comic who asks me for advice, because if they're the kind of person who could get dissuaded by me telling them to quit, they're never going to make it anyway. So I'm saving them pain. And I think that's right. Like if you're going to quit, cause like, I'm like saying you should quit, like you should quit. And that's the best advice.
It's good advice.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to save you so much pain. Like if you're a comic, it's one of the hardest things to do outside of, anything that's actually hard. But like it's so difficult on a day-to-day basis that you shouldn't do it unless you really have to. Like unless you have to.
Yeah, unless you're married, got a couple kids on the way. Oh, I got to quit comedy because I got to go get a job in the marketing department at like Lowe's or something like that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Which Lowe's, if you need somebody, I need a job bad.
I could write great copy for Lowe's. I'm just putting that out. Does anyone from Lowe's listen?
I used to work at a Lowe's, if that helps.
Perfect. So someone from Lowe's probably listens.
Yeah.
I know I would be great at writing copy. I have experience doing viral
I
video.
had a copywriter interview recently. Okay, I know we keep going on and on, but I have to say this. This mid-level media agency said, hey, I applied for a different gig with them, and they said, hey, we're actually not hiring for that, but we think you'd be perfect for this copywriter gig. And so I applied and did like my first little interview thing with them, and then they go, hey, we're actually not going to take you. Why would you tell me I was perfect fit for the position and then don't even let me like talk? It was only like a written interview.
Dude, I have such a similar story to that. That is such a bad feeling. And I know the exact feeling. You're just like, why would you do that? Because I worked at my day job after I graduated college I worked in the corporate office for Uber. Nice. But I wasn't a full-time employee. It was like a contracted thing.
Right. Because that's exactly what this was. This was going to be a contract.
To not give you benefits now, they'll just put you on a contract so they don't have to pay for your health insurance. It's really like predatory. But basically, they did that for put me on a contract. And then this woman was like, people have been saying good things about your work. Like, I am interested in having you. So let's do a pre-interview. She was like a full-time employee. They were interested in moving me to a full-time position. Right. So I did this pre-interview with her. It went great. At the end of the pre-interview, she was like, please apply to the position. Like, you're a great fit. I get along with you. Please apply. This isn't an exaggeration. I applied like right after the interview, probably an hour after. 3 hours later, I was rejected. I'm like, why did you ask me to apply? It's like literally if someone was like, here, do you want a cake? And then just like smushed it in your just like, yeah, that's where the cake goes. you idiot.
What hurts the most for me is that this mid-level media agency, they may have employed my ex-girlfriend, and I know she had zero media experience, and I've built a media brand, and I grew up without internet, and if you don't think that's a weird, interesting thing, then you can piss off. And so I built this media brand. She had zero media experience, and she gets a job with them. I wanted a remote position, so I wouldn't be in the office with her. If you're listening, Toots, I wouldn't be around you. And they didn't give me the gig. And it was like, what made me more mad is like, I know the type of people you hire, like, and you're not going to give me a shot. Makes no sense.
Doesn't make any sense sometimes, dude. It really doesn't. And also because you know what's annoying is that happens in every industry and it happens in comedy. Like people will get jobs. I'm like, you suck at comedy. Why did you get that? And it's so much worse for comedy because I'm like, this is the one industry I'm like, okay, I know they're bad. Like I know
Yeah.
for a bad, and I didn't get, and it can be very discouraging.
Yeah.
If you're not, and Jason Choi always says this, but like if you're not focused only on the work, like on like just doing good comedy or like doing a good podcast, then you're gonna get screwed in the long term because you're just gonna realize like, oh, it's kind of random. There's no way to like make it. There's no like getting better doesn't even really affect it. So if you're just focusing on like, let's have the best conversation we can have on this podcast, or like, let me like write the best bit I can write right now, like always trying to get better.
Right.
Always trying to improve. Like if you're not focused on that, you get lost very quickly because the industry is pretty random and it doesn't make sense. It's kind of arbitrary. So like, as long as you focus on the work, that's it. That's really the only thing you can control.
Yeah.
And that's how I find happiness is like, if I have a new bit that's working, doesn't matter what else is going on, I'm happy.
Yeah, and people like to get upset, especially in the comedy industry. So they see like a social media influencer is doing a show at a comedy club. Say like a guy like Casey Frey did a comedy show. And I'm sure his stand-up is great because he's known for dancing. I'm sure his stand-up is fantastic, okay? And the people like that, you know, social media influencer type people. And comics get upset about that, and I understand they're like infringing on their turf. But here's the thing about the industry: they don't necessarily care if you're good. Can you sell out a room? Yes, then yes.
I mean, that's what I like. You are not. I mean, you clearly know, but like a lot of comics have to remember, like it's just a business. At the end of the day, you can't sell tickets. You could be the best comedian in the world. It doesn't matter. They need to make money.
Now, those people who can't sell tickets, is that where people get the term comics?
I wonder. I don't know.
But you know what I'm talking about? Like the people that are like in the underground rooms and they're, you know, just balls to the wall comedy.
To me, I think comic would mean, just to me personally, the way I interpret it is like Bill Burr was a comic before he put out Let It Go, which was like his first big one, or was his first big one the one before that in Philly? Whatever. He had like 2 albums / specials that he put out that were like big. And before that, he was really only known in comedy. He was still moving tickets, but like it was only other comedians. And I think the term for me comes from a comic is someone who like, even if they're moving tickets, they should be more famous.
Yeah.
Like even if Bill Burr was selling out in every comedy club he went to, I still would have thought of him as a comic at that point because he was good enough, I thought, like back then, to sell out theaters. So like I think comic is like anyone who should be bigger. Like I think Tim Dillon to me is a comic.
Tim Dillon's a comic. Yeah.
He's pretty, like he's got to be more famous. Like that guy is so smart and so funny.
Yeah.
He's just way bigger and he's big.
Yeah.
You know, but I still think he's a comic.
That's a really good point. Was Attell a comics comic? Would you consider Attell a comics comic?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of those old Attell, Insomniac, I think, or whatever it's called. He did an episode in West Virginia, and it was true to character. It makes sense. Like it was pretty good. But those, I'm sure you watched this as a kid, and we just keep going and going and going. Again, I don't have a timer running. The thing about Zencastr is there's a timer. There's no timer here. I have no idea how long we've been going. But the Green Room with Paul Provenza.
Yes.
That's real comedy nerd stuff.
Dude, yeah.
The Attell Stanhope episode is really good. And then here's the one episode that I really liked and what I want in my comedy career, because I want to be respected by my friends and my comedy compatriots, my mutuals. I want to be respected by them as a guy who's like, he works hard, does the right thing. The Bo Burnham, Ray Romano, all those guys, Gary Shandling and stuff like that. So they're introducing everybody, and Bo doesn't say anything the whole time because he's scared. These guys are comedy killers. These guys, Mark Maron, and then out of nowhere, like they say, well, Bo hasn't said much. What do you have to say, Bo? And he's like, well, I'm the youngest person here, and I have to say for all the young people, like, who are you guys? And the room is in stitches. But the thing I picked up on, Gary Shandling looks at him. And for those listening, you won't get this. For those watching, you get this. Gary Shandling looks at him. He just goes.
Yeah,
like
see,
that.
yes. Dude. Yeah, I remember that exact shot. It's so funny that you say that because it's like he earned the respect of Shandling in that moment.
Yes, that's all I want. That moment, still, I got goosebumps. Just like he's a legend, comedy legend. Just looked at him. He's like, "All right, you got it, kid. You got it.
You're in. You're in the club."
That's it, bro. Like I want to like sit in the back rooms and jab back and forth. Like that's what it's about for me. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah, man, that was such a great show. I don't know. I get they must have stopped it, but it's kind of anything that's like about comedy is like I love it so much.
But it bombs because like nobody cares. It's an art form. Like nobody cares.
I know. Like my mom like would be like, "Who gives a shit?"
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, it's so cool. He came up in the '80s in New York. That's when everyone came out. He knows everyone. But like, just talk about comedy. You know, it's weird though. My dad's kind of a fan of comedy. Like he showed me the Green Room when I was like 15.
Yeah.
And weird. And then like the next year I got really into comedy and I watched all of it.
Yeah.
It's like the dream, you know? They're just, It's also so fun because like when you're riffing off stage and you're like kind of hitting back and forth, you're like, man, I wish someone could like kind of be here till
exactly.
Because as Bergazzi says, otherwise it's just like mean.
Yeah. The funny thing about Nate, and this is what I aspire to be like similar to Nate, because I work mostly clean like he does. He was like respected by like he wasn't known as a clean comic. He was known as a good comic who happened to be clean. And that's what I want. And like he was boys with Giannis coming up and they lived together and he was friends with that crew and stuff like that. So it's cool to see like I just love the mutual respect. It's like two worthy adversaries. It's like when UFC fighters touch gloves before the fight, just a respect. I like that.
Yeah, man, I love that part of comedy. That's also the most gratifying is like I moved to New York in 2017 and I was like so bad at comedy, just like so horrifically bad for like 2 years. And then people who don't see you for a while, because I was just doing mics, like they'll see me at a show, say like late 2019, and they're like, oh shit, like wow, man, like great set.
Yeah.
And like it's comics I've respected the whole time that probably never even registered my name or my face.
Right.
But they like I'm now on their radar and they're like, yeah, you're good. And they kind of they start talking to you like, yeah, I'm working on this new bit. Like, what do you think? Like they almost start to see you as an equal and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like it's such a cool that you're right. That's like one of the best things in comedy is someone you think's funny, who thinks you're funny, and then you're just friends, you know, that's just a friendship.
Yeah, and like I said, like I've been such a big fan of your stuff for a long time, and like you know, you liked one of the jokes on Twitter, and like when you laugh at stuff I say on here, it's like it's such a good feeling. Like it's crazy, man.
Yeah, man. It's weird because I mean, it makes sense if like I feel like most people would have this if like they met like Justin Bieber or something. It's like oh my god, if Justin was like, oh shit, really? Like, oh damn, man. Well, what about you? Like if Justin Bieber said that to most people, that's the feeling. Like Sam Evans being like, what'd you think of this bit?
Mm-hmm.
And like great comedian. He's a comic, truly comics comic, in New York. But he's not like most people wouldn't care.
Yeah.
He spoke to them, you know, just like they wouldn't care if I spoke to them.
Man, yeah. So Jamie Wolf is my Justin Bieber, I think, is what we're getting at. I think that's what this whole thing was about. I think we've been going on for an hour, man. But again, thank you so much for being on here, man. This was a long time coming, and I got to be honest with you. I've wanted to get you on the show for a while, but I wanted to, like I said, like get my reps in and get practice in. So when I brought you on, I was able to play ball. So thank you very much for being on here, man. It's where do the people follow you at again?
At Jamie Wolf Comedy on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And man, hey, by the way, thank you so much for having me. This was just super fun, man.
Ton of
Come
fun,
up
man.
to New York or move to New York.
I'm trying. Someone hire me as a copywriter. All right. Hey, thank you guys for checking out the show. Subscribe to it. Tell your friends about it so it can grow, all that stuff. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at francosworld_. In the meantime, keep taking care of yourselves and see you when I see you. Have a good one.